Welcome Ms. Anna on NEP 2020 Aspiration to Action video talk. NEP 2020 education policy has come out 34 years after the previous one. While some progressive schools like yours have already taken some actions ahead of the times, but for a majority of schools, NEP 2020 is very aspirational. This talk aims to learn from you the actions that you have already implemented or are planning to take in alignment to NEP 2020. Before we start the talk, let me first introduce you to our viewers. Ms. Anna Pagriwala is the principal of Mayur Private School in Abu Dhabi. She has an MEd from Boston University and specializes in curriculum and learning. She is a visionary and a forward thinker who firmly believes that education is the key to a successful life that will develop thinkers and leaders for tomorrow. She believes that students should be taught the skills and not just the content. With this belief, she began her journey in the field of education. She has worked as a teacher and the head of Department of Science with English Schools Foundation, Hong Kong for 9 years, and then worked with the American School of Bombay for a total of 18 years. Ms. Anna then moved on to Abu Dhabi as the founder principal of Mayur Private School to create a center of excellence for students where technology is the backbone of education. Ms. Anna has become the leader of the first one-to-one laptop tablet programs in the UAE. Ms. Anna has been awarded the Best Principal in the International Zonal Award by SOF Foundation and has also been voted and awarded as the Most Amazing Principal 2017 and 2018 in Abu Dhabi. Being a frequent workshop leader, she has provided professional development for teachers in schools in a variety of settings, including India, Australia, and UAE. She sets high standards for her staff, and this has helped Mayur Private School being the only ISO 9001-2015 certified CBSE school in the region. Her enthusiasm and vivacious approach to work creates an energetic environment, inspiring new opportunities for her students and teachers at school. Welcome, Ms. Anna. We are so glad to have you talk with us.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and I'm very glad to be here with you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, so to begin with this century, which are the 3 21st century skills that have most often come to your rescue?
At the outset, I would like to say that there are actually 5 21st century skills, but collaboration, communication, and critical thinking are the most important 21st century skills. These skills, I wouldn't say have come to the rescue, but we have always embedded them in our children right from the year 2014. That was when Mayur School Abu Dhabi was established and we started the one-to-one laptop program. Communication is very important because the more you communicate and you communicate clearly, it wipes out any misunderstandings.
Right.
Collaboration again is very important because a collaboration doesn't mean one-to-one only. Collaboration also means that when you are working collaboratively, you can agree to disagree. And then critical thinking is very important in all walks of life. You have to think outside the box. You have to have your responses different from the norm.
Right. Yeah. So what are the actions that you have taken in your school previously that are in alignment of NEP 2020 today? And what further preparation or steps are you planning to take in this?
Okay, I'll just give you something very briefly, and that is we are doing this. We are doing one-to-one laptop learning. We are doing embedment of 21st century skills, and we are doing a lot of hands-on learning. We are doing project-based learning. We are also using maker technologies right from kindergarten onwards.
Okay.
So we believe in teaching children by doing. And when they do something, when they prepare something, that is very helpful to them, and that will make them understand the topic, the concept very clearly. And this is not only in academics, in the school, in the classroom. Even when we had a family fun day program in my school, I had my students prepare games, and they were a big hit with the parents and other students also. NEP has just been introduced. It is a big framework, and it moves towards, there's a paradigm shift from rote learning to hands-on learning, project-based learning, etc. And what we need to do, we need to firstly train our teachers. Our teachers need a lot of hand-holding. Okay, that's number one. And number two is that you need to also teach in the way that students are allowed to talk more than the teachers in the class.
Yes,
Student
absolutely.
ideas, student programs have to be heard by the teacher. The teacher needs to be patient, and then only will they succeed in their hands-on activity.
Okay.
So we have made a plan, which is kind of, we have a separate plan for our kindergarten, separate for primary, middle, and secondary school.
Okay. For a school leader that wants to foster a 21st century learning ecosystem at school, based on your experiences, what are the typical challenges of a school leader?
Okay. Now, let me tell you that education has evolved and progressed in the recent years, bringing in different notions of learning, classrooms, curriculum, pedagogies, learning profiles, and the overall system. All this is aimed at the better learning opportunities to be given to students. It is learning is no longer restricted only to age, okay, and classroom lecture strategy, as I previously mentioned about rote learning, and students have expanded beyond the realms, okay, of their minds and boundaries. Teachers too are expected to push their boundaries. And coming now to the challenge, well, the challenge I faced in the beginning was with my teachers, in the sense teachers needed a lot of CPD, as we call it here, which is continuous professional development. Continuous professional development for the teachers almost every month. And mind you, regarding the professional development, it's, we don't do as one size fits all. Okay, we ask our teachers what is the area of concern, and we plan our PDs, professional development modules and courses, exactly according to the concerns of the teacher. One teacher may know project-based learning and one may not know. So if I take a PD session for the teachers on project-based learning, I cannot involve everyone. You see, it's calling for the person who already knows. So we do a concept-based PD and concern-based PD. So it's focusing the PD on the needs of the teacher.
Okay.
And I would also like to say that nowadays, the biggest challenge I feel is catering to global awareness. Students as well as teachers need to know about global careers, global climate, global challenges that we are facing right now, and which is very important. Teachers need to inculcate global awareness in students so that they understand not only the environment but
Yeah.
also social, cultural, political, economic events in the world, the role they play. Students must also be familiarized with the values of tolerance, very important, empathy,
Right.
equality, justice, and inclusion.
Yeah. Right. So focus on individual needs of teachers and global awareness for students. Very, very important points, ma'am. Thank you for sharing that. So one of the best parts about NEP 2020 is its recognition of teachers as a key element of school transformation strategy. It talks about career management and progression of teachers within schools. Can you share your experiences of facilitating teacher career advancement in the schools that you have led?
All right. Um, as I have just mentioned a few minutes ago, continuous professional development for teachers is very important. I've observed that all schools do not stress on professional development at all. They just tell the teachers, okay, now you have to do this. And they have to figure it out themselves how it has to be done. School leaders have to play a very important part in the professional development of teachers. They have to give them a lot of resources and a lot of training, as the way we teach is changing now. It is more hands-on, and it is more learning by doing. So professional development at our school is a continuous process. And being in Abu Dhabi, in UAE, we are mandated with 25 hours of professional development in a year. But Mayur touches almost 70, 75 hours
Oh,
as
okay.
professional development giving to teachers. And we also encourage some teachers who are ready. So they have peer-to-peer
Okay.
workshops. They conduct those workshops and they help other teachers. So it's not only the management who keeps on talking and giving workshops, but if we feel that the teachers are well aware and confident of the concepts, we encourage them to conduct professional development sessions for other teachers.
Okay. So continuous professional development of teachers is the requirement. Yeah, definitely.
And the teachers themselves, you know, teach.
Right.
It's like peer-to-peer teaching or in-class observation,
Okay. Yeah.
whatever you may call it.
Right. Peer-to-peer learning. Yeah, very, very important. Yes. NEP 2020 states that by 2030, the minimum degree qualification for teaching will be a 4-year integrated B.Ed degree that includes training on the time-tested and most recent techniques in pedagogy. You have been very passionately and actively involved in the professional development of teachers and have worked in a variety of settings in India, Australia, and UAE. Can you share some of the important methodologies and modules that you have incorporated in your professional development trainings?
All right. Now, since I've already mentioned that I'm a firm believer for hands-on training, and which I feel is very important and is a very effective way uh, for training the teachers.
Right.
Hands-on training dives deep into the practical knowledge which teachers have, and by they themselves working on it, they will able to implement this in the classroom. I would like to share something with you. Even
Okay.
with even with parents, we call them on a Saturday, and we worked with the parents to make a model as part of our
Okay.
Maker Saturday program. It was called a Maker Saturday, and we called a few parents of a few grades only. They were working with their children to make the model. I could see the difference as parents were working to complete it, and kids were directing their parents how to work on it. And
Okay.
parents thoroughly enjoyed this session. So we use different ways and different methodologies to continue with our professional development We give them even digital trainings, and sometimes we replicate classroom type teachings also. Sometimes it's displaying visual content, and as I said, sometimes even by involving parents, because we feel it's not the teachers only, it is the teachers, students, and the parents who need to be involved and have to be aware of how teaching takes place
Right.
differently.
Yes. Interesting to know about parents' involvement. Yeah, as one of the strategies. Yes. So coming to assessments, the purpose of assessments and its role in education of a child has always been debated. Assessments and their design or format have been largely blamed for driving more of rote memorization and unhealthy pressure on children rather than contributing towards their development. Transforming assessments for student development is one of the key priorities of NEP 2020. What is your view on essentiality of assessments to the learning process and the kind of assessment design practices do you feel schools should adopt?
Okay, I will answer this question in two parts. First, I'm going to talk of assessments, and then I'm going to talk about what sort of assessment should be given to kids in these times and how do we design them.
Right.
So first, there are two types of assessments we have in school: assessments for learning and assessments of learning. And whenever a teacher imparts certain some knowledge about some concept or topic, and she or he wants to know how much the child has understood. So in those cases, we implement what is known as assessments for learning. This is very important because we come to know whether the child has understood or not. This assessment is not graded and it cannot be graded because the purpose of this assessment is for learning. So this cannot be graded. Now, what is the meaning of assessments for learning? If the child is not clear in some of the concepts or has some concern, then the teacher has to reteach the same concept again in a different way. In other words, as we call it, this informs her teaching. So the teacher, him or her, will have to reteach this concept. So by this assessment for learning, it helps the teacher to reteach in a different way, and also it will help the student understand the concept better if he or she has some questions in that. So that is assessment for learning. Very, very important. And that has to be continued. Now, assessments of learning. Once the learning is complete, once the topic is complete, we normally tend to give an assessment. That is known as assessments of learning, which is graded. And that has to be once a month and not every week or every 3 days. Assessments of learning can be once a month or once a term, like you have your examinations. All those come into the category of assessments of learning. The student has learned the work, so we come to know now what is the final outcome. How is the student able to put it on paper and explain the responses to the respective questions asked? Another thing now, which I want to really stress more on, is the design of these assessments. The design of these assessments should, what we call, and we use in Mayur, assessments by backward design.
Okay.
What do you mean by backward design? By backward design, I mean you have your assessment ready before you start teaching the topic.
Okay.
You look, as a teacher, you look at the topic. Oh, next week I have to teach this topic. Okay, you go through the topic. Not every I and every T is important in that topic. You have to teach the students only what is important, what will be of value to them in the coming years to come. And therefore, we teach that, and then our assessments are based on teaching by backward design. Means first we create the assessments and then we teach. Now, let me also tell you one thing I would like to clarify is, oh, that means the assessment is done and then they teach exactly answers to the questions in the assessment. No, no, not at all. It's backward design because we create the assessment and then we teach the whole topic.
Right.
What is required by the student and what is necessary.
Mhm.
For example, for 34 years, CBSE history includes so many subjects. It includes cultural history, political history, okay, history of India, economics, etc., etc. Now, history as a subject has, it's very interesting, one of my favorite subjects. But if you insist on the child that the child should remember all the dates of all the wars fought,
Mm.
etc., that is not going to help him in life.
Right.
Okay? It's
Yeah.
definitely not going to help him in life
Mm.
later on. I want to share one more um experience of mine with a student. The
Okay.
teacher was teaching them the War of Kalinga. And the student then comes, because we have an open door policy. Students come straight into the principal's office if they need to chat or talk. And I was questioned, why are we learning wars? Don't they know that the outcome of the war is always been deplorable? People die, there is poverty, there is
Yeah.
suffering. So, doesn't the king know the outcome of the war? If he does, why does he go to war? These are the questions we need to discuss with students in the class. And not
Right.
Kalinga War was fought in so and so year with so and so against so and so king. You know what I'm saying? These are the
Right. Right.
valid conversations we need to have in class rather than the rote learning of the war. When did it take place? Where did it take place? Why did it take place? Etc.
Right. Yeah. So assessments for learning, assessments of learning, assessments by backward design, and definitely the valid questions that we need to ask students in the classroom. Very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have worked in many international board schools. Given your considerable experience there, what aspects of NEP 2020 align in international schools?
I would say what aspects of international schools are aligned with NEP.
Okay.
I would put it the other way around.
Okay.
And the reason is uh, from our 10 plus 2 system, we have now moved to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, which is in line with international education standards. It aligns with the global vision of protecting students' mental health and giving them a wide variety of choice. Previously, we just had science, arts, and commerce, and you had no other choice. Now, the student can get a degree in any combination of subjects he or she chooses. There is no restriction, absolutely. So, with reduced insularity and greater freedom, students are selecting their subjects of choice. And the focus returns to holistic learning of all subjects, rather than a bend towards arts or science or commerce. In
Right.
the international system, there is a lot of flexibility and a lot of subjects are offered. And for example, you can graduate with music as well as maths.
Mhm.
This option was unheard of
Yeah.
in the Indian system. Now, very glad and proud to say that with NEP, students can choose what they want.
Yeah. All of.
Credit transfer also are very important.
Mhm.
And students now can have multiple entry points into the system. If they just graduate and they want to work, they can work. and come back to continue with their post-graduation with subjects of their choice. So now, what I'm really, really happy about, besides hands-on learning, is students are not restricted to narrow domains of learning. They can choose any subject they want. And this is going to be very helpful for them because they will not have any stress and they are going to put their 100% in doing what they always loved and wanted to do.
This is the last question. If you were made the chief policy maker on education, what single change would you want to make to NEP 2020?
Well, going through the policy framework of NEP 2020 was pretty enlightening, very good, and nice to know that these changes are incorporated, like I said, hands-on learning, different ways of assessment, etc., etc. But there is one change which I would like to implement, and that is, instead of implementing the whole thing together, we could have divided so we can give greater importance detailing the process of primary school, their subjects, their concerns, implement that, give teacher training, see how well it's done. If the 21st century skills are implemented, give them support. Then next year move on to middle school and then to secondary school. We should have a 3-year plan at least in place. So once you are thorough with one section of the school, you can go to the next section. And that is very, very important. For me, if you implement the whole thing together, then teachers are still sort of running to find their bearings, because a teacher may teach in middle school as well as high school, will teach in grade 9 as well as in grade 11, will teach in grade 6 as well as in grade 8. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
That is a very valid point according to me. And if it is implemented step by step over a period of 3 years, I think that would be more productive. But nonetheless, these measures are creating a pool of skilled and employable youth. And they will make their lives very meaningful in rural as well as in urban areas, rather than, fall off the hook. So this by itself is a very good and robust policy, NEP 2020.
Right. So detailing of the process and step-by-step implementation from moving NEP 2020 from aspiration to action. Very, very important.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Anna, for taking our time to talk on NEP 2020 aspiration to action. You have shared some very useful insights and pointers that most of us in education will benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you once again. You're very welcome.